Hello, and welcome to Making Creativity Pay, the podcast where we talk to people in creative industries about how they promote and market their work. I'm Dan Barnett, and on this episode I was speaking to Sheldon Southworth, aka Dickie Ticker, from the band the Lancashire Hotpots. The band's motto is 21st Century Folk for 21st Century Folk, and have released albums including Nevermind the Hotpots and Achtung Gravy, and have performed at festivals such as Glastonbury and Kendall Calling, as well as touring the country, and are currently on their Bisto Inferno tour. We talk about the challenges facing a live band in the current economic climate, promoting the band online, and the various tools and techniques involved in selling tickets to live shows. I started the interview by asking Sheldon to give a bit more info about himself and the band.
Okay, so my name is Sheldon. I'm the principal songwriter and you could argue business person within a band called the Lancashire Hotpots. Myself and the main core of the band, we'd been struggling weekend musicians for a period of time, doing a variety of musical styles. End of 2006, 2007, we stumbled across a little comedy skit that we decided to do and create a band called the Lancashire Hotpots, which was a folk band, Lancashire folk band, but sort of parodying folk bands to a certain degree, in that we decided to talk about and write songs about the things of the day. So folk is very much a medium and a genre that reflects on past times. We decided to write songs, folk songs, around the current things that were happening. With the advent of social media and MySpace, as was, then we sort of got a bit of a following, and we've been growing our audience ever since then. We tour nationally. You could probably argue that we play to on average 400 people for each and every show. Obviously, that's a range. We played a show in Newcastle, which was a 275 capacity venue. That was a sellout. So that was the smallest thing we did last year. Our largest show was in Manchester, which was, I think, to about 1,400 people. And we play the main stages of sort of medium-sized festivals. So the biggest one we'll do is Kendall Calling, which is based in the Lakes, and they have a capacity of about sort of 25,000. So our main task in life is to balance the day jobs Monday to Friday and be a professional band of a weekend.
And so within that, obviously, it's quite a northern themed kind of thing. I mean, how do you find it kind of goes down in the rest of the country? Wherever we play, northern expats tend to turn up. So in London, there will be a lot of people who have previously lived within the north. But it's funny, a couple of years back, somebody came to us and said that wherever you are from within the country, you have a position to the band. So yes, we lean very, very heavily on the fact that we're from the north of England, and perhaps playing with northern sort of stereotypes. So the people in the northwest, they love us simply because they can really sort of see themselves very much within us. And maybe in other parts of the country, sort of down south, people can look at us, laugh along with us, but maybe there's some interplay with the fact that I enjoy these people, and maybe I enjoy them because they're nothing like me in some respects. So it was interesting when we were kind of arranging this. You kind of said that you were free dinner time, and then I thought your dinner time is pretty different to my dinner time. And that's kind of one of the things you can talk about, is that yes, it's the same country, the United Kingdom, but there are still within that lots of differences.
Yeah, certainly regionally. When you think about, society, I won't say it is necessarily homogenised, but we don't. Maybe the regional differences seem to be very much ironed out in the 21st century. So in the southwest, they still have scrumpy and western, which is how the Wurzel genre of music is referred to. But I can't necessarily think of many other regions that still have their own unique musical identity. Sort of Lancashire folk music is still something that that has a little bit of a following and an identity in this particular century.
It's interesting you mentioned MySpace there. We've had a previous guest talk about Bebo and all these kind of things, because to some extent people think of a lot of this thing as more recent, but in reality it's probably 20 plus years now that online has been a tool to kind of develop and promote and so on.
Yeah, I mean, I speak to so many people, and previously I was a lecturer at a college at an FE and a HE level, and you did have to very much appear to be the old person and describe to them what music and music promotion was like prior to the days of sort of MySpace, because for the most part you had your own websites. There were bulletin boards. I think that was one of the main ways that one of our previous bands used to reach out to try and find a new audience. And we are very much spoiled. I know social media has its down points, but in terms of something like the Meta and its various platforms within there, as a marketing tool, there really has never been a better time to be a musician, I would argue, and just because of the tools that they have, which allow you either organically or paid to reach out and to build a following.
Yeah. I mean, how do you find that? Because obviously nowadays you have to be on multiple platforms and responding to people and so on. So you were saying, that it's, in terms of playing, it's a weekend thing, but in terms of promotion and social media and everything else, it's almost a full-time job.
It takes an enormous amount of time, and I try to stress to people, I mentor musicians through in various sort of capacities. I'm a mentor for the Help Musicians charity, and there's different ways of looking at it. If you're just sort of starting out, the chances are that in terms of maybe the content that you create and the messages and comments that you will get, they will only be a handful, say. So it's fairly easy to keep on top of those. Obviously, as hopefully you gain a larger following, replying to, which is what I try to do, replying to each and every message it is a time consuming capacity, but that is the best way in order to turn a casual follower into a fan. We had one piece of in fact it was the first piece of content that went viral for us on TikTok, I think either last year or the year before, and there was something in the region about 4,000 or 5,000 comments. It was a case of trying to reply to as many of those as possible. So it is a job in itself, but for me it has to be done because that's the best way to turn, if you want to use a terribly sterile marketing term, in order to turn that cold audience into a warm audience, there has to be a level of engagement in order that you can start building a relationship with your audience. Because the whole point is that there's such a demand for our attention, and there's so much content out there and performers trying to build an audience. The 90 to 95% of the people won't ever respond to a comment. So what you really need to do is you need to respond where appropriate, talk to people, and it's getting back to those old principles such as Dale Carnegie, was it how to win friends and influence people. And if you want somebody to be interested in you, first of all you have to be interested in them, and that's the first step on the ladder.
Yeah. And in terms of kind of what you do you see it as you're a live band and you sometimes make albums, or are you recording and you go out live to promote them, or is it very much the live experience is the key thing?
If I had just been in the band for so long, it's probably fair to say that we have discovered that people would prefer to see us live over and above listening to the music either online or through a purchased hard copy. In terms of turnover, it's probably fair to say that 90% of the income that we make is through live shows. And to a certain degree, that's because we worked at getting the live shows as engaging
as they can possibly be. So for us, it's a focus. Experience tells us that people would prefer to see us live over and above maybe either the music that they'd stream online or sort of a physical CD or media purchase. We've worked quite hard in not just going out there and playing a gig. It's very much a show. I tend to think that what we do works better in theatres than in sort of standing O2 Academy type venues, just because what we do is quite theatrical in a way. So probably 85 to 90% of our turnover and income actually comes from our live shows. And because we can only play a modest number of live shows, because we can only gig at the weekend, we'll probably do something in the region of about 30 shows and festivals this year. So our job is to try and get the largest possible attendance for each and every one of those shows. So, it's quite focused in that these are the dates where we're sort of playing. In terms of our marketing and promotion, everything has to be based around those. So one of the things that we do, and my sort of, I won't necessarily say formula, but the way that we've been able to grow the business is we'll put out regular social media video content, which for 2023, 2024 is vertical video, your Reels, your TikTok, and what is now YouTube Shorts. We will put out on a regular basis vertical videos in terms of us performing at live shows, and they will get a modest amount of views and a modest amount of engagements. And every once in a while, there'll be one that overperforms. And for whatever reason, normally you've no idea why, but the algorithm has blessed you with maybe 2, 3, 4, maybe 10 times the number of views that you normally get. So it's a case of me then putting some ad spend behind that video and showing it to a selected number of people in the places where we're going to play and where I necessarily think we need to build a bigger audience. So we've got a gig coming up in Derby. It's a 500 capacity room. Without any level of promotion, we might only get sort of 400 people in there in terms of our existing audience. So for the next month or so, my job is to pay to show our best performing content to people within that particular location and several other locations throughout the country where we're playing. That's Hull, that's sort of Birmingham. So specifically in those areas, because those are the areas that we're playing. And for me, because I know we'll never do a gig in Leicester, say, there's no point me spending any money to advertise ourselves in Leicester, because we won't be able to take advantage of an audience there and get money from the people in Leicester. So it's identifying where we're going to be playing, building an audience within those locations, playing those locations, trying to get them as filled, those venues filled as much as possible. And that's basically it's a case of rinsing and repeating.
For the Derby show, for example, how much support do you get from the venue itself in terms of promotion?
You would be surprised at the level of support from some venues. What most people don't necessarily realise in terms of music venues and to theatres to a certain degree, the main money that they will make from live shows is behind the bar. They make their money from beer sales. So you'd think that a venue would try and do its best to promote each and every show that is held within their premises. But unfortunately, venues can be extremely troublesome in the fact that it may well be that they don't specifically have a marketing person. The person who maybe is involved in marketing isn't that maybe au fait with current sort of marketing practices. So it can vary. The Derby venue, I think we've had the gig on sale October, November, December, maybe 3.5 months. And we've had 3 social media posts from the venue, and they do seem to be very keen to be pushing the show online. Sometimes you'll get maybe 1 social media post from a venue, either when the show goes on sale or on the evening of the show, which is a little bit too late. But I just don't know why, because
For the most part, because I during the day I work for a for a gig promoter. We put on gigs up and down the country from Glasgow all the way down to London. And there's normally three parties involved in promoting a live music event. Chances are there's an external promoter. Most venues don't actually promote the gigs that go on within their own venues for various logistical reasons. It's easier to let an external promoter do it and therefore take on all the risk of paying the artists. There's the venue and there's the artists themselves. So it's a tripartite thing, and it works best when all three parties are pushing, continually sort of promoting the event. What you might get from a particular promoter could well be them making one social media post, sending some A3 posters to the venue, and that will be about it. Again, the venue might do one social media post and do very little over and above that. So it is very much a case of ourselves as artists. We try and do as much as we possibly can, working on the basis that you have no control over the level of effort that the other people who are involved in this particular endeavour that they will give you.
Yeah. And in terms of ticket sales, I mean, are you able to see on a daily basis, or do you have to kind of chase someone up to say, well, Derby's up to 385 now, or whatever it would be?
Well, I'm lucky enough to work for the promoter who promotes my show. So it's a bit of a busman's holiday. Ticket counts normally come through on a Monday or a Thursday. So I get to promote and execute all the admin with regards to our particular shows, both on our shows, but because I work for this promoter, I handle shows for other acts all over the country. So, I can see the comparison maybe between ourselves and other artists. And it is still very much, because we are a small concern, we have virtually zero media coverage. That I know that if we don't do the marketing ourselves and create the audience and create that awareness through social media, then chances are, though, the gigs would not be as much of a success as they are.
And I mean, how much of the old school promotion, so going on local radio, local newspapers, what's left of them, is there still much there, or is that kind of dead now?
Maybe it was on one of Sean Adams with his Drowned in Sound podcasts, where he said there was, I think, 600 million that the music industry is spending on marketing and promotion, but obviously music publications are falling by the wayside simply because all the marketing budgets are going into social media platforms. And with ourselves as promoters, it is probably the case also that everything that we've got, probably 98% of the budget will go on social, simply because in terms of a geo-targeted advertising, you can reach the people that you need to reach in a specific location, and you can tell whether somebody's taken an action, maybe in terms of clicking a buy button, which will take you to a ticketing sort of website. In terms of other platforms, like putting an advert in a newspaper, you've absolutely no idea whether anybody has seen that. So there will be a case of sending sort of posters to venues, but I don't think we used to, the company that I work for used to take out maybe a quarter-page advert in a local newspaper, something like the Manchester Evening News, and we'd have maybe 5 or 6 shows on there, and the cost of that ad could be split between each particular show. But I would say that you can't afford not to use social media, simply because the level of targeting that they give you is so much better than anything else that you're going to get within the media landscape. For our big Manchester show a couple of years back, we experimented with a PR person just to see what a press they could get for our show, and I think there was one. I think we spent £250, and there was one tiny mention in one sort of listing magazine, and it didn't necessarily move the needle. So we just concentrate everything online.
With a tour, I mean, you're saying, kind of Derby, for example, trying to promote it, because of all the fixed costs, the cost of paying a promoter, paying the venue, is there like a huge difference between 80% capacity and a sellout show?
Because I work for the promoter, we're quite lucky in some respects that some promoters are, shall we say, more unscrupulous than others, and will load in perhaps unnecessary costs which are unidentifiable, and you can't necessarily trace them back to say, did you really spend £100 on local advertising? There was one gig that we did in Cardiff, and we'd been billed for a rider which we'd actually bought ourselves. So yes, it pays not necessarily to be a forensic accountant, but to go through your settlement and make sure you haven't been charged for something that you've not necessarily received. So we're quite lucky in that we're very lean and very tight in terms of our expenditure. So because we are playing mostly to 80% capacity and above, and because our costs are so low, we've been gigging, I think, over 15 years, and it was only last year that we employed a couple of road crew, simply because we do it all ourselves and it's cheaper that way. And I still operate the merch stall on a lot of out of town shows. So even if the venue isn't maybe at 80% of the capacity, if it's for whatever reason it's only about 70%, we will walk home with a decent amount of money. But that's simply because we try and strip out as many costs just so that we can still walk away with a decent amount.
Yeah, you mentioned the merch stand. There's one thing I wanted to come to, is that it's one thing that's mentioned a lot. I see a lot with artists saying, a venue will say that they have to run the merch stall and they have to take a 30% cut or whatever it would be. I mean, have you found that there's a lot of difference with different places about how loose they are with that? Do they let you just get on with it and what you take is yours, and others that, are right on top of that?
There is a huge difference. We play a lot of smaller independent venues who don't charge. Some venues will charge rather than a percentage. I think this is actually better for most artists. They will charge you a small amount per ticket sold. So there's one venue in Birmingham where we play, and I think it's 13 pence plus VAT, where we will get charged no matter. So again, if you're not sure how much you're going to sell, you've at least know exactly how much it's going to cost you, rather than, you could have a fantastic night and do £2,000 on the merch stall, and that's going to be maybe 25-30% of that. I think theatres are the biggest culprits. Into pretty much every theatre that we play, they will take 20 to 25% of the merch takings. The thing is that I once heard an interview with Peter Hook, and he basically said that no artist likes it. Why don't they just identify an amount, whether it's £200 to £500 or whatever, just load it onto the high cost of the venues, and everyone will be happy. If it's just a cost that's rolled in to your settlement, where you chances are you probably won't even look at it on the settlement. Everyone would walk away and feel less disgruntled. But that can be quite a significant amount for smaller artists, especially if you get a good taking on the merch stall. I think we make on average £3 per head for everyone who attends our show. So if we play a 400 capacity show, we will make on average £1,200 there or thereabouts currently on the merch stall. Yeah.
So you were talking about the focus is on live, but I had a quick look on Spotify. You've got 20,000 or 21,000 monthly listeners. Your top song, Chippy T's, got nearly 900,000 listens now. So that's a fairly significant number. Are you looking to push that, try and get a push onto a million?
Advertising your music on streaming using social networking platforms. For me, it's a no-go. The costs incurred trying to get a Facebook or an Instagram user to click a particular button, which will take you either to a landing page, which can then take you to one of a number of streaming services, or a click a button and that will take you direct to a streaming service. Because of the amount of ads that you will have to show before one person will click, that could be in the region of about 30 pence, say, on average. So before you might have to run 10,000 ads, and somebody will click that button, and that will take them over to Spotify, and they will hopefully listen to your song. So it's going to cost you on average 30 pence. The money that you will receive back in terms of streaming royalties is 1/10 of 1 penny. So it doesn't take long to realise that it's a huge cost for very little return. Now, the idea is that if you do this enough times and enough people do stream your music, then algorithmically what will happen is the platforms will realise that your music is being consumed to a significant degree, and then will push it out algorithmically over and above what it will have done before. So you can run ads to try and create sufficient momentum where the platform will push that out, but the costs of that are significant. And I've seen one particular person who he does sell these courses, and he's quite upfront in terms of the results that you are likely to get. Even he, in one of his pieces of content, said that it's going to take you between 3 to 10 years to recoup your advertising spend, and I'd rather just let everything be organic. If people want, I mean, we will use things such as Instagram stories to link to a new release, but I'm not spending a modest amount of money getting a precious little amount of money in return, when I know I can spend that money better to create attention, to build an audience in locations where we're playing, and then get money back reasonably easier by getting people to a live event. So the streaming royalties, they're great. It's passive income. I think on average we get from all our sort of streaming royalties and all the different platforms, I think we get about £1,000 a month, which is nothing to be sniffed at. Again, in terms of it's passive income, it will keep coming in, and it ebbs and flows. When we enter sort of festival season, then one of our songs will be on the official festival, like Spotify playlists, and we'll get a bump from that. So it's nice if it happens, but there is very little financially to be gained from promoting music on streaming. It is just nice to have.
The kind of the in-between between the old school marketing and the new social media would be kind of email marketing. Do you undertake anything like that? I had a look on the website. I couldn't see any mailing list.
Yeah, it's our drummer who runs our website. I do keep reminding him every now and again that he needs to put that button. Yeah, we have got a MailChimp, which is it's only got a couple of thousand people on it, and I do periodically use it. I really should use it more than I should, and for my sins, I only ever contact people whenever there's an announcement to be made in terms of maybe new merchandise. Maybe there's a tour going on sale. Even if you haven't got a user's location data, MailChimp is quite good in that it can cross-reference other information that you have online, and it can try and estimate where you are in the country. And again, let's go back to Derby as a way of example. So it can estimate out of all the thousands of people on our mailing list who might be in and around Derby, and I can send those particular people a targeted email. So it is still there, and it is important, because do people still do their check their emails? I mean, people such as ourselves, the slightly older people, maybe more so than the young uns. Text marketing is something I've been meaning to to take a look at, because apparently it costs between 2 to 4 pence to send a text to somebody, but the open rate is something like 99% compared to the open rate of emails, which is at best 25%. So that's something I will endeavour to look at this year.
Yeah, I think you mentioned TikTok earlier, so it's one thing. It's taken me long enough to get from Twitter to Instagram. To now move from Instagram to TikTok seems a bit much. But I mean, I've spoken to other people for the podcast, and they've kind of said the advantage of TikTok is that you can go viral, you can go big with little previous kind of activity or previous spend. Whereas something like Instagram, if you've only got 50 followers, it's not going to get that big push. But with something like TikTok, it can take off. I mean, you said you found some videos do a lot better than others. I mean, how have you found TikTok overall?
TikTok was great in about 2 years ago, because it wanted to become a platform of growth. It was giving all the users a lot of organic reach. So a lot of our videos were doing very good numbers. What I've tend to found is that as we've gone on, and maybe as more professional creators have dominated the platform, the views that we get have decreased. Now, what you said in terms of trying to build a following, now that Instagram and Facebook have adopted Reels as their primary platform, the distribution of Reels is very much the same as TikTok, in that it's not really based upon your number of followers. The success of your content will be dictated to by the level of engagement that it receives. So all these platforms now, TikTok and Facebook Reels and Instagram Reels, will seed out your content initially to a random selection of people who aren't even necessarily your followers, and they will gauge the engagement that receives, whether that's likes, comments, tags, shares, and based upon that level of performance, it will then start seeding out to the next layer of people, and they will check the level of engagement, the number of likes, comments, shares and tags from the next tier of people, and so on and so forth. So even what we found is that, because I actually started to use Reels more so than just posting directly to my feed, we encountered a massive amount of growth on Instagram. So it is now possible to achieve a greater amount of growth on traditional and existing platforms, whereas previously, the growth had pretty much flatlined on both of those. And like I say, our numbers on Facebook and Instagram now are, and the amount of growth and the views that we get, they far exceed what we get on TikTok. TikTok very much seems to be throttled these days, and it'd be interesting to see what most creators do seem to say, that they don't get the reach that they once did there.
Yeah. And so, I mean, when you've got the real world gigs, how much, when you're there, either literally while you're performing or when you finish performing or at the merch stand or anything else, I mean, how much are you pushing, follow us on Facebook and on Instagram and all the rest of it? Or do you just kind of concentrate on the show?
I concentrate on the show. Well, chances are, if people are there at a gig, they already follow us on a social media platform. So maybe the only instance where that wouldn't be the case is if we were appearing at a festival, say. But I think if you're appearing at someone else's show, you are being hosted by another entity. I don't think it's right. I mean, we don't even say, as we're signing off the end of our festival set, to say, come see us on tour or what have you. Chances are, if people have enjoyed us, we will, they will automatically seek us out online.
Thanks so much for your time. I don't know if you wanted to kind of just do a little bit at the end, just to say where people can find you and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, sure. So if I have piqued your interest and you'd like maybe to have a look, you can just Google the Lancashire Hotpots. Our various social media platforms will be available through a search. If you got any questions, maybe that you want to ask me, if you're a musician and you'd like me maybe to look over your own sort of social media platforms or offer you some advice, I'm always open for anything. Won't charge you anything. All you'll have to do is listen to me ranting, and my rants will probably say you need to be creating more content and engaging more with people. And that is the secret, I would like to say, to our success.
And I mean, with that, are you disciplined enough to say it needs to be 10 pieces a month or whatever else, and you create them?
Well, if you listen to Gary Vaynerchuk, he will say that you need to be creating 3 pieces of content per platform per day. I think if you've got one good piece of content, when I first started posting on TikTok, I mean, we've all got jobs in terms of the band. We haven't got time to be creating things each and every day. So it's better to post one good piece of content per week rather than 4 pieces of very dull content which won't get any engagement. Because the thing is, the engagement is the thing. People have got to be liking, commenting, sharing it. And if you're posting something which is half-baked and which is dull and a lot of it, then you simply won't get the reach. It's better to be a little bit more disciplined, think more about the end product, how people will receive it on the other end. Just do one good piece of vertical video content a week and see how you go from that.
Thanks for listening. There's more details in the show notes about where you can find more about the Lancashire Hotpots. And if you enjoyed this, check out some of our previous episodes where we speak to people about making creativity pay.